I rise today to speak to the motion of my colleague from the Conservative Party, my colleague from Wellington Halton Hills, for whom I have great respect. He has intervened on numerous occasions with respect to our foreign policy on China, and I do feel that though there is some daylight, on many levels we are very much on the same page. Indeed, our Prime Minister has already, on multiple occasions, stated that our government will continue to push back on China's coercive diplomacy and will work with our allies to push China to respect the multilateral rules-based order, that we will continue to stand up for our values and continue to insist on the respect of human rights and freedoms in China. Indeed, we will not back down from raising our concerns regarding China's repeated violations of human rights, whether in Hong Kong, Xinjiang, or elsewhere. And we do all of this, Madam Speaker, all of it, while demanding the immediate release of our two arbitrarily detained Canadians, Michael Korvig and Michael Spavor. We know that a concerted international or multilateral approach is the most promising track, and I am personally optimistic that starting on January 20th, we will have a new like-minded administration at the helm of our ally and neighbor to the south, who believes in this type of multilateralism and the rules-based order, and who believes that our interests on the world stage align closely. There is opportunity, Madam Speaker, to work with our allies on a strong multilateral approach to China. And Canada is well positioned to harness that opportunity, and we should not lose sight of that. But allow me, Madam Speaker, to point out now, in response to this motion, what Canadian parliamentarians and indeed our government have already done and continue to do to this day. In response to China's imposition of the new national security law in Hong Kong, legislation which threatens the one country, two systems agreement and endangers the freedoms of those living in Hong Kong, Canada has suspended our extradition treaty. We have banned exports of sensitive materials, and we announced sweeping and new expanded pathways for residents of Hong Kong to immigrate here to Canada. Only a few days ago, our Minister of Foreign Affairs spoke out against the removal of Hong Kong's pro-democracy lawmakers, noting that China's move was in disregard of Hong Kong's basic law and a further assault on Hong Kong's freedoms. He qualified these actions as a break of China's international obligations. Last month, the Subcommittee on International Human Rights, in the context of their important study on the situation in Xinjiang, tabled a scathing report on the persecution of the Muslim Uyghur minority there. The report noted mass detentions, forced labor, state surveillance, and population control measures. The report concluded that there was violation of human rights and that these measures were meant to eradicate Uyghur culture and religion. This same parliamentary subcommittee also detailed the forced sterilization of Uyghur women and girls, forced abortions, and forced use of contraceptive devices in a systemic attempt to persecute and possibly eradicate Uyghur people themselves. As a result of all of the evidence before the subcommittee, both in 2018 and in 2020, the subcommittee concluded that it was persuaded that the actions of the Chinese Communist Party constitute genocide as laid out in the Genocide Convention. Madam Speaker, our Parliament has not been silent, and no amount of coercive diplomacy will silence us. And it is not only in Parliament and through parliamentarians that Canadians have heard our voice, indeed, that the world has heard our voice. Canada's ambassador to the United Nations has been among the most vocal on the international stage in recent weeks, and Ambassador Ray is not known to mince his words. Whether at home or on the highest of international and multilateral venues, Canada has been vocal, and China has noticed. China has been very quick to respond, indicating that they will retaliate against Canada for our position. And still, Madam Speaker, we have not wavered, and we will not waver. La motion du Parti conservateur devant cette Chambre souligne que nous sommes tous unis, tous partis confondus, sur l'importance que le Canada se dote d'une politique étrangère rigoureuse, fondée sur des principes et appuyée par des actions de concert avec ses alliés. Je rappellerai donc mon honorable collègue de Wellington, Halton Hills et tous les membres de cette Chambre que c'est exactement ce que le Canada fait. Outre les rapports, constats et conclusions de nos comités, sous-comités, conclusions et rapports qui sont d'ailleurs publics, Madame la Présidente, et que la Chine a évidemment remarqué et commenté, le mois dernier, de concert avec 38 autres pays, nous avons fermement dénoncé les abus de droits humains en Chine. Aux côtés des États-Unis, de l'Allemagne, du Royaume-Uni, du Japon, de l'Australie et de nombreux autres, nous avons demandé que l'ONU ait un accès immédiat, significatif et sans entrave à la province de Xinjiang. Et en juin, le Canada a fait partie de 27 pays décriant le soi-disant loi de sécurité nationale de Pékin une menace pour les libertés des habitants de Hong Kong. Nous avons vu récemment l'impact de cette loi liberticide avec l'éjection de 4 représentants pro-démocratie du Conseil législatif d'Hong Kong. Le reste des députés ont ensuite démissionné, Madame la Présidente. Nous ne sommes pas naïfs. La Chine est la 2e économie mondiale. Nos producteurs doivent absolument pouvoir avoir accès à cet énorme marché et les opportunités qu'il offre. Mais néanmoins, ici au Canada, nous continuons et nous continuerons à nous tenir debout pour nos valeurs. With your indulgence, Madam Chair, let me now address the aspect of the motion that I do find problematic, highly problematic, Madam Chair, stipulating, in fact, dictating that the government must make public a decision on Huawei within 30 days. I certainly understand and appreciate that colleagues on all sides of this chamber may hold reservations and concerns about any involvement of Huawei in Canada's 5G networks, but we cannot substitute our personal views for the professional analysis of our national security agencies. We, as parliamentarians, cannot murky the waters of our national interests. We cannot compromise national security because of political reasons. There are numerous factors at play. There are experts at CSIS studying this question. There are ongoing negotiations for the release of the 2 Canadians being held in captivity in China as we speak, Madam Speaker. Significantly, it is a poison pill to indicate in this motion that we should choose an arbitrary number of days in order to make a decision public on this matter, Madam Speaker. I would not want the debate or any of the arguments that have been raised today by members of the Conservative Party or otherwise to mislead Canadians. Canada has not granted access to Huawei to our 5G networks. If you look at our industry on the ground right now in Canada, already Bell, TELUS, Rogers have all announced that they will not use Huawei 5G equipment. Let me repeat that, Madam Speaker. Our major Canadian providers have already stated publicly that they will not use Huawei infrastructure for 5G. I understand that what this motion is requesting is that the Government of Canada issue its decision. But to give a 30-day deadline is simply arbitrary and artificial. It is our national security agencies, it is CSIS, and our communications security establishment that are studying the question. And as much as I appreciate that their study is taking time, I do not think that is in our national interest or the interests of Canadians to place an arbitrary deadline of 30 days in order to issue this decision. This is not the first time I have stood in this House to speak out on China, and I fear very much that it will not be the last. And though I may be one of the more hawkish members of our caucus on this issue, I urge my Conservative colleagues to accept the invitation to discuss amendments to this aspect of their motion with our government. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs said this morning in debate, China poses some of the key foreign policy challenges of our time, I would suggest humbly that we together in this House rise above to address them.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member from Outremont for her speech. I wondered if I could ask through you whether she thinks that the FIPA agreement that was signed in 2014 by Stephen Harper, signed without any input at all from Parliament, that really restricts what Canada can do in terms of fettering Chinese activities, business activities here in Canada, whether that agreement has had any impact on why this government has taken so long to make a decision on Huawei.
The honourable parliamentary secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and through you, I thank my colleague for his question. I believe that there are numerous factors that are going into the decision that is currently under review. As I mentioned in my speech, there are security agencies that are evaluating this aspect of the question. I believe that the Minister of Foreign Affairs himself indicated that above all, we must consider our national security here in Canada. And I believe that is what is guiding, the decision of this government. And I think that it is absolutely necessary for all Canadians to keep that in mind.
L'honorable député de Rivière-des-Mille.
Drummond.
Oh, Drummond. Excuse.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Presque aussi beau que lui. Je remercie et félicite ma collègue d'en face pour son discours. Madame la Présidente, je veux revenir aussi, moi, sur la question de Huawei, parce que dans son discours, la collègue parlait, entre autres, de l'importance de respecter et de défendre nos valeurs. Et c'est vrai qu'avec un partenaire commercial de l'importance de la Chine, on marche parfois sur des œufs. Il faut apprendre à se piler sur la langue, des fois. Mais dans le cas de Huawei particulièrement, nos partenaires du Five Eyes et la plupart des grosses télécoms ont choisi de tourner le dos à la technologie de Huawei. Et je me demande pourquoi c'est si difficile de suivre ce mouvement-là. Je ne vois pas comment on serait les mauvais joueurs dans l'histoire si on décidait d'emboîter le pas à la plupart de nos partenaires, dans le cas de Huawei particulièrement.
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire.
Merci, Madame la Présidente, et je remercie mon collègue. Écoutez, je suis tout à fait d'accord qu'il y a certains acteurs, certains de nos alliés qui ont pris leur décision. Il y en a d'autres qui ne l'ont pas fait. Et je dois rappeler à cette Chambre que nous sommes dans une position bien différente ici au Canada. Non seulement nous avons 2 Canadiens qui sont emprisonnés en ce moment de façon arbitraire en Chine, mais nous avons aussi d'autres considérations de nature domestique qui n'existent pas ailleurs. Et je crois fermement que nous devons continuer de travailler avec nos alliés, comme mon collègue suggère, mais que nous avons aussi à considérer la situation particulière du Canada et de nos Canadiens.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question to the member. So we've heard that the government is announcing this framework by the end of the year, working on China and putting a plan together. And so if the government is not including Huawei, 5G, is not including how to combat China's growing foreign operations here and increasing intimidation within Canada. I mean, that's what the motion is. So if those things aren't included in this framework, what is included in the framework that's being...
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, and as I believe it's the first time that I am responding to my colleague opposite, I would like to congratulate her on her new critic role for international trade. Madam Speaker, let me be very clear. The government is not saying that it is refusing to make a decision regarding Huawei now or in 30 days from now. It is saying that the world is changing at an extremely rapid rate, that we cannot predict where we will be in 29 days from now, that to put an arbitrary 30-day limit on this important decision does not make any sense. We will see what will be included in the realm of possibilities on our framework between now and the end of the year, and it is possible that this decision will be included, but it's possible that the world will change 100 different ways between now and then, and I do not think that it is in anybody's interest, not in any Canadian's national interest, in order to put an arbitrary deadline of 30 days on this decision.